Oh, welcome. So happy to see everybody. Oh, wow. What another week it's been, right? All presenting new challenges. I was listening to a live stream of Krishna Das this week, and he was talking about how this quarantine life is, kind of like mandatory retreat time, and the importance of the opportunity it presents to us to have some form of a formal practice and to quiet our ego mind. So that was great because he just really helped inspire me, as he always does. Um, in addition to this quarantine time of mandatory retreat, it's also in our Buddhist calendar. Me as a practicing Buddhist, it's our period of Ango. We call it Ango. There are two periods of Ango in a year. It's a 3-month period of more intensified practice. So that kind of goes right along with this. For me, being raised Catholic, it reminds me of our Lenten practices, which our quarantine started during Lent. So we have that tied in. We have Ango tied in. And then as well this week, Ramadan started. And so it being a month of fasting and prayer and deep reflection for the Muslim community, their focus is on compassion and peace and service. It's just all of these things are coming together, with the astrology, that this is a really opportune time to have a deep practice and to be reflective. And so, that's brought all that in to kind of figure out what today's talk was going to be about. And so I've already opened the directions and smudged and created our sacred circle so that our time could be well spent together. And in the process of doing that, I had to reflect on my own week after hearing those things and looking at what's going on right now. And I'll tell you what, my week was extremely challenging when it came to my introspection, when it came to my own personal growth and my own practice. In that experience, I really struggled this week. I struggled a lot. I struggled with my ego in some really big ways that I haven't in a long time. I watched myself in that observational way fight with all sorts of feelings of inadequacy, jealousy, pride, lack of pride, judgment. I had problems with guilt. I had problems with shame. Like all of this is what was just flooding my mind all week. And I was constantly faced with it. And so I thought, well, this is the time of deep practice. So this is the time this is going to come up. It's the time for our shadow selves to show. And I've been told that, and I feel that, and I recognize that. So, it's time to slay these dragons. And so I went at it pretty hard and heavy all week. And the more I tried to slay the dragon, the further in the quicksand I sunk. And it's really difficult and frustrating because there was the me that was experiencing it, and then there was the me observing it, trying so hard to twist that into some sort of spiritual practice. And so I didn't give up. I just, slay this dragon, slay that dragon. How do I get to the heart of my ego and to nip this whole thing in the bud? Like, what's coming? How do I get there? And so I suffered a lot trying to. And the more I focused intently on it, the more suffering I created, and I got stuck there. So ironically, during the time of being stuck, one of my high school besties reached out and sent me an old picture of things she was going through of my parents, which I'm going to share with you here. Where do I go? I'm not sure they would love me sharing this photo with you, but I'm going to. So here it is. My mom and dad, many, 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 many years ago when I was a little girl, canoeing. And they used to take us on these canoe trips all the time. And the funny story goes that their friends who would come with us would pass by and just kind of laugh. And finally, one day, I'm not sure if Carol's on this call or not. I think it might have been her. She was on many of these trips with us. Somebody was passing, I think it might have been Carol and Tom, passing my parents. And my mom was always in the front of the canoe working really hard. And finally said, Val, stop working so hard. Your husband's sitting in the back. He's got a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. His oar is out of the water and he's drinking a beer. So you're going zigzagging across this river and you're working so hard and you don't have any help, which was funny and infuriating. And so it was ironic that my friend sent me that picture, because in the midst of my struggle, I looked at that and I thought, oh my gosh, that's exactly how I feel right now. I feel like I am working my tail off and I'm just not making much headway. I'm just going from bank to bank. But here, my illusion was thinking that I was alone in this. I wasn't thinking, who's not working with me? I also wasn't remembering that there was anybody with me to work with. So it was interesting to me that this picture fell in at that time. And so in trying to work with that and working so hard with the best of intentions, I mean, I was going to get at this from a spiritual perspective. But we get exhausted sometimes, not remembering that we have the help we need. And so we put ourselves in that front seat of the canoe, like I did, thinking that we're somehow in charge. How yang of us, this yang energy of doing everything, you know, of being strong and slaying the dragons. Well, being knee deep in my misery, trying to figure out how to deal with my ego, I eventually got wise enough to reach out to my teacher. And Dr. Goodall was a huge help. She didn't have to say much, but she said the one thing that mattered most. And she reminded me so beautifully that slaying dragons can be a trap. Our dragons are with us for a reason, and they never go away. But that the important part is growing the light bigger than the dragon. And it was like, all of a sudden I got it. Growing that divine light in me to be bigger and more powerful than my ego, than my dragon, is where my attention needs to go. To remember that I am one with spirit, that divine light is in me, not separate. And once I got that, once that just clicked, it was like I was just sitting in that abiding love, that peace, that understanding of where I was wrestling so hard with myself with good intention, but not getting above it, not ending my struggle. And all of a sudden that shifted. So the gift is that we have the partnership with God. You know, whether I take my canoe story or we look at, footprints in the sand, you know, we all forget that we're not alone. And building that relationship with God, with your own divine connection, with Great Spirit, building that connection, staying focused there on growing your light is where the healing happens, is where our suffering ends, is where we let go, where we turn it over, and where we find peace. So that is the gift that I was missing, and that I, bow so deeply to my teacher for reminding me of, that divine mystery of oneness, that we don't do anything alone. We also carry the imprint of our ancestors, their strength, their courage, their love, their code, as well as their weaknesses, their faults. We take it all with us. So when we ask for help, whether you want to say guardian angels, ancestors, all the hierarchy below Great Spirit, when we ask for help and we ask for that engagement, they're right there with us in the canoe. so we don't have to go from bank to bank trying to get somewhere. So remember that you always have that partner with you, in you, and that you are the partner also, that your oneness with all sentient beings and all of creation is also where you help others. That's the service piece, right? So in order to grow in this way, mindfulness is really important. And in order to mindfully create that yin energy, that nurturing aspect of your divinity for yourself, in order to engage the power back into the canoe that you're in, mindfulness is essential. Deepak Chopra says that mindfulness is the highest form of intelligence, and that when we're thinking outside of mindfulness, we're rarely having a thought that isn't consumed by our ego, that isn't somehow through our own lens of perception, that isn't somehow about us and how we're relating to the world. And a lot of those times, those thoughts aren't necessarily positive, and a lot of the time they're not necessarily true. So when we engage in mindfulness, we are all of a sudden experiencing the oneness outside of our ego, outside of us. And in order to do that, having a steady practice is important. Having a practice keeps you in the now, keeps you here, where you're not rehashing history or worrying about the future, but that you're right here and you're fully engaged in the moment. So what's your practice? What's your practice that brings your mindfulness to you every day? Some of us do wonderful things like journal, listen to certain kinds of music, podcasts, videos. We bring in inspiration. We process things of our own through journaling, or, we read. But that's usually like, how are we inspiring ourselves? And we're bringing all of that in. And that's good because it helps us understand the importance for mindfulness, but it doesn't necessarily create it. And so that's really important to recognize, okay? It's kind of like if you're in the canoe, it's allowing you to enjoy all the scenery, to enjoy where you are. And that's really important. And that's an important practice. That's being in the now. It's taking it all in, okay? But introspection and practice itself is something that's cultivated from inside. That's like flexing a muscle and helping you recognize that you need to clear the slate of all the things you're seeing in order to be absent those thoughts and have that space to let the divine reside, to let that grow, to let that space be there with your breath. So while all those other practices are excellent, I very much encourage you to find either a walking practice or a sitting practice that allows you the space in your mind to just be with your breath, let go of your thoughts. You're never empty-minded, okay? Because thoughts will pop up. That's the nature of our ego. That's the nature of our mind. That's the way things happen. But there's a way that we work with that. And there's a lot of different types of meditations out there. I personally practice Zazen. That's where I was drawn to for Buddhism. And we'll do a little bit of that to offer you a breathing practice. But yes, the mindfulness, the staying in the now, and having a daily spiritual practice is what helps us grow our light. And the larger our light can grow, then we're not so focused on the demons we want to slay. And that's the gift. That's the piece. We live in our divinity instead of having this dualistic way of being. So I'm going to have everybody kind of go into your own space, close your eyes. Sink into your body. Sit up straight. Feet on the floor. Feel yourself right where you are. Comfortable or uncomfortable in your skin, it doesn't matter. Just be there without judgment. Breathe in. Pay attention to your breath. Exhale. Just settle into your body. Let your breath breathe you. Find that yin energy in yourself of just being. You're not doing, you're being. And in order to gain some control of your mind, count your breaths. Breathing in, saying 1, exhale 2. Inhale 3, exhale 4. And when you get to 10, you want to reset and start back at 1 again. Now this is a loose pattern for you. Get to 10, go back to 1. If you count over 10, or if you lose your place, just start over. No judgment, no frustration, just gently start with 1 again. We're just going to do that now for about a minute. So while you're breathing now, awaken your senses. Sense where your mind is after 60 seconds of breathing and counting. Are you a little more tuned in, a little more relaxed? Do you feel how your nervous system has taken a deep breath and relaxed as well? You might be able to smell a little better, taste a little better. Notice your heartbeat. So when we practice this type of breathing, this kind of mindfulness in the world, it can just be a moment like it has been. But what you've done in that moment is reset everything so that now you're paying much better attention to things. It's like wiping the chalkboard clean and being able to have a clean slate. And that mindfulness now keeps you, that was just at least a minute now, that you weren't focused on ego thoughts, that you weren't being pulled into your suffering, that you weren't running around on the hamster wheel in your head. And the more often you do that, the more control you have in bringing yourself back to your breath and not getting sucked into the suffering of it all. So that's a very loose form of formal Zazen. Toledo Mindfulness Institute's in town, and when they have workshops, I highly encourage you to take one if this is appealing at all to you. But even just to learn that 10 count without practicing formal Zazen is a beautiful breathing technique that helps you in just a moment. It's like, I remember when my mom would, tell my brother, count to 10 when he was getting angry. Take 10. Count to 10, relax. Well, this just deepens that same type of practice. And that's how we get to this place where we calm all of those ego thoughts and our light is allowed to get brighter. We're allowed to let go of a lot of that suffering. Now, it doesn't always happen easily. I might have to do it again and again and again. I might decide to, I ideally try to sit at least 30 minutes a day. I started at 10 and worked my way up. I teach teachers in the classroom, when they're in the classroom, to do it at the beginning of each new class, especially if they have classes that rotate kids, to just take 30 to 60 seconds, do that breathing exercise, and then step into the next place and your mindfulness is turned on for you. So this is the way that we commune with that divine energy in our canoe so that we can be more effective and have more peace, have more compassion, and get into that heart space that's such a treasure for us. I hope that helps you feel a little lighter today. So with that exhale of releasing any fear, any anger, any struggle we have, and with the inhale of inviting in trust and faith and love, compassion, bringing that light bigger, we come together. And this is the way that we live sacredly. This is the way that we step in the now, step by step by step. So with great gratitude for our ancestors and guides that have been with us, I thank them for this lesson for all of us. And I want to take that level of energy we all have now that we all just collectively raised, and we're going to offer this up now for the whole world. So in the spirit of being in retreat practiced around the world in all sorts of various forms right now, let's offer this up as a community. All right, so if your eyes aren't open yet, come back and join us. Thank you so much for putting your energy into that blessing for the world. And so we'll close with a blessing for you. May you abide in peace in your soul, in your home, in the world. May you always remember that your light is brighter than your despair or struggle. And may you always feel the power of your oneness with Great Spirit. Live sacred. Aho, and Ramadan Mubarak.